Around here?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So this is Reem.
Yes.
And we met at the Filipino Festival
Yes, we did.
at the Surrey Civic Center.
Yeah, Surrey Fiesta Extravaganza. Yeah, that's.
I found Reem to be a very authentic, interesting woman. And what she talked about a little bit was what I wanted to talk more about. Actually, when she was part of that YouTube video, I thought we wouldn't be able to hear any of it because of the noise, but it was pretty good.
It was pretty cool.
We could hear a little bit. She was homeless for 5 months, and now she's an ambassador helping raise funds for what sounds like a good organization.
Yeah,
right?
Covenant House.
Covenant House. I've heard of them, and I think they do a good job.
Yeah, they do an amazing job.
So we will tag Covenant House and Reem, and we'll do a future YouTube together where she can tell her whole story.
I look forward to it.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Reem.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. We'll stay in touch.
Yep. So let's start at the beginning.
Sure.
You were born in Saudi Arabia.
Good memory. Yes, yes, I was.
Why were you born there?
That's where my parents met.
Okay.
They were both healthcare workers. They both were breadwinners of their family.
Okay.
And I was born and raised there.
Okay.
So have my siblings. And we can't really have permanent residency in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
So my family started looking for places to immigrate.
Okay.
Going back home wasn't really an option because healthcare workers are not really compensated very well when in the Philippines. So they looked at Canada. Canada was number one on their list.
Your parents are both from the Philippines.
Yes, that's correct.
They're both in which part of the Philippines?
We're from the southern part.
Okay.
That's Mindanao.
Mindanao?
Yeah. My mom's Tausug, so she's from Zamboanga. So they're, I'm not sure if they're indigenous people, but we have a lot of Malaysian roots or like culture that we share with them.
Okay.
But I lived in Davao.
Oh, okay.
City.
I've been there.
Have you?
Yes. I had a lovely cup of durian coffee at the airport there.
Ironically, I don't like. I'm the only person in my family that doesn't like durian. I can't stand the smell.
The Philippines has this overseas worker culture.
Yes.
And
yes.
Somewhere at one time I read 10, 12, 13, 15 million, somewhere around 10% of the population at any given time is somewhere in the world. You can put your glasses on if you want.
Okay, yeah. I didn't want to be rude.
No. I like this because you're going to look better. The camera likes light and likes no noise around us. And then everything is perfect. No, you look just fine.
Thank you.
So I understand your parents then moved at some point or they met actually in Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
So they were single overseas workers from the Philippines in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Yes, they were.
Being in that country, and I've spent time not in Saudi, but Dubai and the Emirates and around that region of the Middle East, everything I've heard about Saudi is not overly pleasant. I have great friends from Saudi that have places in Dubai and Emirates where that's where I've met them. I've never been to Saudi. You were born there.
Yeah.
And you lived there.
Yeah.
A long time.
11 years, yeah.
Okay, that's a big chunk of your life.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Growing up as a child, I would say that I grew up not knowing hardship because my parents provided meal, roof over my head, no problem. I grew up homeschooled. It was homeschooled because what would happen is that we would hear about teachers setting up schools in the comfort of their homes. So how it would work was that Filipino kids, it was mostly a Filipino school I went to, if that makes sense. So,
sure.
Elementary school kids would be from like 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then from like preschoolers, kindergartners would be from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So I did a lot of my schooling in that setting. I didn't really get to go to a Saudi school.
Okay.
Because for one, we're not local.
Okay.
And I know growing up, I was bullied by locals a lot.
Okay.
They have this sort of like air around them.
Okay.
But not all of them are like that. My parents would frequent going to Jeddah, to Makkah, Medina. We would go on road trips a lot. That's one of my core memories.
Okay.
And every time my dad's car would break down, it's always the Saudis that would stop to help. Saudis, Bengalis, Pakistanis, they are the ones who would stop and make sure that we were, helped, make sure that we were hydrated. And one of them even offered us a hostel to stay because, a lot of them are saying, like, you guys have kids. And my sister, who was only 3 at the time, was already, like, she was the most vulnerable one. And,
Sure.
They helped us a lot. So I feel like with any country, there are extremists and there are also people who don't really identify with the extreme side, So I grew up with the best of both worlds.
Other than being bullied as a child, which can happen anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Can happen in your own home culture, around your own people. It sounds like most of your experiences were fairly pleasant ones. You didn't feel like your life was in danger at any time, or that you were being mistreated as a female, as a woman?
Well, I moved out when I was just about to hit puberty, so I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
In Saudi, though, it's very common for girls who, as soon as they hit 4th grade or 5th grade, they start wearing abaya, so like a covering.
Okay.
So I did that. But
So
then,
as a foreigner, you needed, I know it is hijab, the same thing?
hijab.
Hijab?
The hijab is like the head covering.
You wore one.
Yes.
Are you Muslim by religion?
I grew up Muslim, yeah.
Okay, so your parents from Philippines, where everyone assumes everyone's Catholic.
My mom is actually, Tausug people are all Muslims.
All Muslims?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Majority of them, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so halal food and is part of your life. Are you practicing Muslim today?
I am.
Okay.
I try to every Ramadan. I do my best to fast,
Okay.
give charity.
Okay.
With prayers, I struggle a little bit to pray 5 times a day.
Okay.
But I keep in touch with my culture a lot.
So you speak Arabic?
Shwaya, a little bit.
Okay. And I saw somewhere, I was trying to do a little bit of research, just see what was public that I could find. Some other language, Bisaya and Tag, English.
And a little bit of Urdu.
Urdu, which is Pakistan.
Pakistani, yeah. I grew up with a lot of Pakistanis. A lot of my best friends growing up were Pakistanis.
I did, maybe 2 years ago, what I thought was a wonderful series with a woman here in Vancouver. You might want to meet her sometimes. Her name is Aliyah Abbas from Karachi.
Okay.
And the YouTube series we did, she's a beauty influencer. I think she had somewhere 70, 80,000 kind of followers, mostly Instagram,
Right.
her own online stores, but just a lovely woman who helped me understand the other side of what the media would say Pakistan is all about.
Right.
And you're doing that for me now with what you remember as a person born in Saudi, but having a culture and heritage from another part of the world.
Yeah.
So you now, coming to Canada, came for schooling, or how did it come about that you left Saudi and came here?
Well, before coming here, I lived in the Philippines.
Okay.
I did the remainder of my high school there and some university. I did medical lab science there back home. I was actually a scholar.
Wow.
But, that means I had to start from scratch.
Okay.
All my credentials were basically, it meant almost nothing.
Okay.
So I came here because my parents applied for a permanent residency.
Okay.
And just this year, I celebrated my Canadian citizenship.
Whoa!
So, yeah, it's been 5 years since I moved here.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Now, I want to back up one, because I'm just remembering you said you left home in Saudi at the time you were entering puberty.
Yes.
Because?
Oh, because like my mom was getting homesick and she moved here. So she wanted us to be taken care of back home in the Philippines.
Okay, so around preteen, you
Yeah.
go back to the Philippines.
Yeah.
You experienced, which was great for you to experience. Was it a culture shock?
A lot, by a lot. When I stopped wearing the abaya, I felt weird. I felt incomplete. And the culture of having people express themselves openly, people joke openly, and it's a lot less reserved. It's a lot more loud. There are parties, where in Saudi, like if you hear about a party, it has to be through friends of friends, and it's most of the neighborhoods I grew up in Saudi were very quiet.
Okay.
So people were much more reserved, whereas in the Philippines, the party's open to everyone in the neighborhood, even the adjacent neighborhood would come over. So it was a culture shock. I grew up becoming an introvert, but then Philippines somehow gave me a balance of being an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So your parents had good employers, good people that they worked for? Was it a good relationship
back in
in
Saudi?
Saudi?
Well, they had no issues with their employers, actually. My mom's sister, younger sister, who passed, God bless her soul, maybe 8-9 years ago, her boss actually donated a huge chunk of his own money to fund her kids' college. So they were, I think my youngest cousin was only 6. No, that's the daughter. She was 6, and the youngest one was actually 3 when his mom passed away. And their college funds are taken care of because of her employer.
So what you're saying is
they're very generous.
Your family had no big problems, no mistreatment, none of the stories we hear about people being locked in a room or treated like slaves or these kind of things that are maybe the exceptions.
Well, we are lucky enough to have found people who were kind to us, but I feel like in the more hands-on laborious market, it's not unheard of. Like we've heard things.
There are difficulties.
Yeah, there are difficulties.
Challenges.
Yeah.
So it's not all one way, but there may be some things happening in the area of how we treat each other as humans that needs to be questioned, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come back then. You were in the Philippines. You studied. You started changing a little bit of the adaptation of how you practiced your faith as a Muslim, and then at some point you alone or you as a family decided to come to Canada.
So my parents separated when I was 16 or 17. So it was a lot of just me and my younger siblings. And sometimes my grandpa, he would come and go from Zamboanga to Davao. But it was my siblings and I who moved here together to reunite with my mom.
Your mom was here
the entire time, yes.
She came from Saudi to Canada?
Yes.
Okay, so she came from one OFA posting to another.
Yeah.
Here in Canada.
Yeah.
You, in the meantime, went to Davao.
Yes.
Your dad or other family members helped raise you from that point, or helped care for you, or? Well,
for a while it was my father and some of my aunts and uncles, and then after that, after their separation, it was just mostly me, my siblings, and my grandfather fending for ourselves, while my mom was our main source of
So you were studying and you were doing odd jobs?
No, I was blessed enough to have a mom that believed in focusing on studies. So even though I grew up, physically away,
she was by social media and sending money back to you. You could keep living and studying, and you knew your mom loved you, and one day you would be right.
Yeah.
And that happened 5 years ago?
5 years ago.
You and your siblings came?
Yes.
Now you're all together?
Yes, we're all together.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happened then here in Vancouver? Because something happened to you that I think all of us have experienced through family members, through somebody close to us. You were for 5 months, in your words, homeless.
Yes.
What happened?
So being an OFW child has a lot of like, it has positive and negative connotations to it. Like back in the Philippines, once people heard that, oh, my mom's working abroad, she must come from money. I must come from wealth. So I would have, for a period of time, people coming up to me who would borrow money, who would, classmates who would think that, we were well off. Little did they know that every single day we would have to make a choice to choose between our lunch money versus spending that money on assignments, on projects.
Right.
And a lot of the times, because we were hardworking, my siblings and I were hardworking students.
Right.
And we were trying to earn for we're trying to get scholarships.
Right.
We would use those funds towards our assignments, towards school.
This is really important. There might be somebody that watches this at some time, and in especially Southeast Asia, but much of the world that I've been in, school is not the same as it is in the West.
Yeah.
Public school means, first of all, that you have a place to go, and it may be very poorly infrastructure, and it will mean still a lot of sacrifices because there's no budget. There is a budget, but it goes to corruption, or it goes to other purposes, or there's just not enough money to buy simple school supplies, let alone project supplies, let alone help prepare for further education. So what Reem is now saying, I completely understand and have heard many times and seen it, been in villages, seen schools in different parts of Asia, where there's a lot of sacrifice. So think about this. Her mom is working here for somebody and getting paid a wage that probably isn't a big wage for Canadian standards, and is sending a percentage back to the Philippines to care for Reem and her siblings, right?
Yeah.
And grandpa,
Yeah.
and whoever else. And people around Reem in the Philippines are thinking she's got a lot of money, and some are taking advantage of her.
Yeah.
Okay, are we?
Yeah,
Is that a good assessment?
Yeah.
Okay,
pretty.
please keep going.
Yeah, no worries. So a lot of that separation with my mom, she was not around for formative years, for big milestones, for birthdays. There was a lot of disconnect, and eventually my brother and I, our family,
One brother, two sisters?
one brother and one sister.
Three of you.
Three of us.
Okay.
So this is not just my story to tell. I believe it's also my siblings to tell. So I will try not to butcher it
Betray
up
them?
in their honor.
Yeah.
But we were domestic abuse survivors,
Okay.
including my mom, and that's one of the main reasons why they separated.
Okay.
So it left us with a lot of, trauma. We couldn't ask help for the longest time. My brother almost died because of how intense it was. So eventually moving here, my mom had a hard time accepting that we had mental health issues. We kept that bottled up for a long time, and now that we're finally here, we're allowed to express it. So when you bottle it up for 12 years, it's gonna explode one day. And we didn't know what to do, the feeling of comfort, because anytime we expressed ourselves, anytime we felt good emotions, we always prepared for the worst, because whenever we were happy, it was always punished. Like something bad always followed something good, and that was something our minds reinforced us to believe. So when we came here, there was a lot of clashes. There was a lot of clashing heads. There was a lot of, why won't you believe me? And it's ironic because my mom's a mental health care aide. So she
Okay.
takes care of a lot of patients who suffer with mental health issues.
Okay.
And to have her own kids go through the same thing, I think it was hard for her to go work mode. Because when you're in work, you can switch on and switch off your emotions, but it's different when it's your own child.
Right.
So my mom assumed the role of a caregiver, and I felt my identity stripped away from me.
Okay.
It was all I've ever known. It was my purpose in life to keep going,
Okay.
because I was in survival mode for 12 years. And eventually one thing led to another, tension grew, and my mom kicked me out. I had couch surfed for a little bit. I won't say for too long, maybe a week or two. I was at my friend's place, and then at my mom's friend's place, and then eventually I found Covenant House through an ad
Okay.
on the SkyTrain, and I decided to call 211, and they told me they might have beds available.
Okay.
And eventually I got in there, Covenant House. So I was living.
Can I stop
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
I'll come back. Can you talk at all about the abuse? Was it physical, emotional?
It was physical, emotional, spiritual. A lot of spiritual blackmailing.
Okay. How do you mean spiritual blackmail?
Well, we were like, if we were to do, let's say like, if I showed my hair
Right.
a little bit, that means I'm not a true Muslim, or
Okay.
this and that. So it was a lot on the extreme side
From other people?
from
Family?
our paternal side.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so they are very, what we would say, orthodox Muslims. They're
I
very
would say
serious,
extreme. Yeah.
extreme.
Yeah.
Sharia area type thinking.
Well, Sharia is, it's taken out of context a lot. Like,
Okay,
yeah.
I only mean it
Yeah.
not in war or anything. I
Yeah.
mean it in the sense of, or I guess orthodox is the word I would use. When
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
is very,
Like
when
to
the
the T.
religion is so, and they believe they can, if they just do this and this,
Yeah.
they will be able to get it perfectly. And
Yeah.
because I say we're perfectly imperfect human beings. I have respect for people of all religions. I'm a Christian,
Right.
but I'm not religious.
Right.
So I have a deep commitment to the one true living God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He gives me life. He
Right.
knows the days on earth. He has a plan for everybody. This is my simple faith. Beyond that, I don't have a lot of rules.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
some people would look at the Bible and say it's a book of rules, and I say it's a book of freedom. So, you know, I completely understand.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
religion is, because we can take it. It happens in Christians, it happens in Judaism, it happens in Hinduism, it happens. Every religion, I think, can have this kind of story where somebody in the family or around.
Yeah.
So you lived under this,
Yeah.
and the physical, emotional toll at some point triggered in you, plus the 12 years of survival.
Yeah.
You started noticing things in your thinking not right, or how did that become apparent to you?
How did that manifest?
Yeah.
Well, it started showing itself by coping. You know, instead of feeling my emotions, instead of embracing it, I would fall back on self-harm. Yeah, a lot of self-harm.
Cutting?
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of that. I'm not the only victim. My younger siblings have been a victim as well. But yeah. Sorry. What was the question?
No, we're talking about how it manifested itself.
Okay, yeah.
And as you were transitioning from there to here,
Yeah.
it sounds like it was a time when you were looking for something to be better.
Yeah.
Part of your dream.
Yeah.
That once we got here with my brother, sister, together with my mom, we would be able to have a great life.
Yeah.
Maybe this was in your mind.
Yeah, it was.
And if I understand you correctly, that did not happen.
No.
In fact, the opposite.
Yeah.
You had it. If I hear you correctly, the best time in your life was in Saudi,
Yes.
at least in part.
Yeah.
the not quite as good a time happened in Davao, and in that experience, and then the worst was when you came to Canada.
I would say that the worst happened back home.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't have our mom. For the longest time, we were victims of child grooming. Yes. I don't really want to dive into that because it's a pretty raw topic to discuss yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can say in case there's somebody?
Yeah.
I mean, even. Let's go over there a little bit. Away, and then the noise stopped. That's Murphy's Law. I'm having a lovely discussion with Reem, and we're talking about, many of you who know my story know my first wife suffered from mental illness, and for 10 years we were in and outside of institutions. I didn't know what was happening. 2 miraculous births of daughters, one who recently died, 10 years of drug abuse, and at times she was homeless, my eldest, and so I understand this story. And when she died about 3 months ago, a little more, of a heart attack in a drugstore getting her methadone, I had peace that she had made some commitment and was now in heaven, in a better place, that all the efforts we had made to help had failed, and the choices she had made had failed, and ultimately something good was now happening because my faith said she was good now, no more struggle, and God knows our timing, our days on earth. So now, and when I made that video, it was intended to share how I was feeling, but always with the intention of somebody somewhere listening. And I was just sharing with Reem in her story, somebody, maybe you, today or in 5 years or 10 years, being helped to make a better choice because of similar struggles you can identify with. So Reem just was telling me when I asked how did her struggles with her thinking and the mental issues manifest. She's explained a big part of it and had just touched on child grooming. And she's going to say what she feels comfortable saying, because I can tell her spirit, her heart, is to be helpful. She's beautiful. We're going to talk about her beauty queen. We're going to talk about Covenant House just in a few minutes when we wrap this interview up. But what else could you say from the pain that might be the difference in somebody else's life?
Well, you know, talking about this is never easy, but I know it happens a lot. It happens in every community, anywhere in the world. I think the first step to identifying it was I came across an article that said there was this woman in her 30s, like 8-10 years ago. She was in her 30s and she would constantly daydream about having her Prince Charming sweep her off her feet. Okay. After several failed arranged marriages, she would fall back on dreaming about Disney Prince, where she would wish she was a Disney princess. And the journalist who was interviewing her dug down further deep into her story and found out that she had been groomed as a child groomed. So by a pedophile.
Okay. Yeah. Can be family, can be somebody else.
It can be family, it can be cousins, it can be your neighbors. It can be
anybody that gets into your life as a child.
Yes.
And then they are doing things to move you in a direction of bad things.
Well, it's sexually inappropriate with a minor.
Okay.
And I went through something similar. Growing up by someone I thought I my family trusted.
Okay.
And it happened for the longest time until I found out a word of what was happening to me, and it was grooming.
Okay.
As I was able to identify it, I was able to tell my mom. I was able to tell her, look, this is what's been going on. I'm not sure if you're going to believe me, but it's been happening for a few years now.
You knew something was wrong. It was clear.
Yeah.
But your mom or who you told could not believe it? Didn't?
Well, I tried telling my aunts.
Okay.
And I was too scared that it would go back to that family friend.
Okay.
So eventually, since my mom was the furthest from us, I thought she would believe me, and she did. That's why she got us out of that living situation as soon as she could.
All this?
Yes. So we moved to my maternal side.
Okay.
So it was all good, all safe. And I think my mom, for the most part, believed me.
Okay.
But the manifestation of having to hate my own body, hate my own brain, for allowing myself to go through that. But then I was a child, right?
Right.
It's so important to show yourself compassion for things that were out of your control,
Right.
that were beyond your understanding once upon a time. And I just learned how to do that after, I became homeless. And that is living in a shelter, away from my family, away from my mom. And my friends didn't know. My friends that I'd made here didn't know. Back home, they didn't know.
You kept it all quiet?
Yeah.
Your mom kicked you out of your house?
Yes.
You couch surfed 1 week or about.
Yeah.
You're riding on SkyTrain. You see Covenant House. You dial 211.
Yeah.
They say, maybe we have a place for you.
Yeah.
And then?
And then my last straw was when my mother and I kept butting heads regarding some financial issues. And then I packed up whatever I could and left without saying a word. I come into Covenant House and I had this intake coordinator asking me, do you know why you're here? Do you know what happened? What were the events that led to you running away or being kicked out of the house? And the only thing I could say was, I don't know, over and over again for the next hour. Because I was in shock. My picture perfect image of me reuniting with my mom after 12 years was destroyed. It was the one belief that I held on to for so long, and now that dream's like shattered, and it felt like it was unreachable. They gave me 3 days to settle in without a roommate, have a space of my own. And 3 days later, I met my social worker, and she asked me, she didn't ask me like, why are you here? Do you know what this place is?
Right.
The first thing she asked me is, what are your hopes and what are your dreams? It was not something I was expecting, but at that moment, I just wanted to forget being sad, and I wanted to talk about something that I can look forward to. Right. And so my social
You're just in the shadow.
Yeah, no worries.
I want to get you in the sun.
And so my social worker started off our conversation like that.
Okay.
I told her I had dreams of becoming a medical lab scientist at the time, pursue my university education, get a good paying job, have a place of my own. And the rest is history. She took me from the shelter to an independent living space called Rites of Passage.
Rites of Passage, okay.
Yes, that's also under Covenant House. It's a program where young adults learn independent living, where we are taught life skills, how to find jobs. We were offered scholarships. That's why I'm a legal assistant right now through their scholarship program.
Did they give you a time for the program? You have this much time and then you have to be out? Do you have this much time, you have to be at the next level? Or is each one going at a different pace?
Well, everyone's different, right? But the standard for living at that program was that you hit step 1. You pass step 1 after 8 weeks, and in order to pass those 8 weeks, you have to do your share of the communal chores.
Okay.
You have to follow your curfew, which was 10 p.m. at the time.
Okay.
You have to meet up with your social work, with your counselors, once bi-weekly or once a week, depending on your circumstance. And I was able to hit those goals up to step 8 in a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were, I want to get the timeline. You were homeless 5 months, but this program took a year.
So after that, 5 months, I was in the shelter.
Right.
But then I went into a transitional housing for the next 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this you do not consider the
No,
homeless part?
I don't, because I would be lying if I said I'd be cheating if I said I was homeless for that amount of time, because
Okay.
I was spoiled
Okay.
at Covenant House. They gave me opportunities over and over again to pursue education. I was fed 3 times a day, twice a day we would have snacks. We were taken out on Whistler to Whistler at one point because there was a donor who had spare tickets, and they actually thought Covenant House would be like a juvenile center,
Right,
right. With a bunch of rowdy people who don't wish anything well on you. I even started picturing myself as Orphan Annie, where I would have to do chores to earn my keep, but it was nothing like that.
So you went in, it sounds like, with an attitude that was dark. It was kind of, I'm at the end of myself. There's some self-harm. There are other issues that you're struggling with because of your story.
Right.
And you begin to see goodness happening to you. Around you, other people that were sharing some of the similar experiences, were there all forms of trauma? Other people having more similar to your experience, or was it real diverse?
Well, a lot of the youth there were neurodivergent. A lot of the youth there with me were a part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay.
But as I moved into the transition homes, a lot of them were actually very bright, promising youth that the system has failed, or the community has failed to protect. One of them was also, I used to be close to her, but we lost touch. She was a domestic abuse survivor.
Okay.
And then another close friend of mine back then, he was transitioning genders, and his family wasn't very accepting of that. And then you would have youth who are newcomers, refugees. You would have youth who came out of the foster care system.
Did you feel safe at all times?
I did, except whenever I would clash heads with this one vegetarian who didn't like the smell of meat, but that was the most I experienced. Honestly.
You're not a vegetarian.
I'm not a vegetarian.
and some of the things of your story, did you fear some of that might happen inside of Covenant House? Many times institutions are problems. Because they have this trust factor that's supposed to be there, and then in some cases there's abuse of their oath and of what they're supposed to be doing, and they do more harm than good. Was any of that in your experience there? Initially,
I had that fear for the first 3 months.
Okay.
But it was so females were separated, or female identifying youth were separated into one floor, and then male identified would be on the floor above us.
Okay.
So a lot of our youth workers were females. So I felt very safe. I felt very, comfortable enough to express myself.
Okay.
And, they're very open if, one youth is not comfortable with another gender being in the same floor. They make sure that they stay as flexible as they could.
Okay.
And a lot of them, a lot of the youth workers, I would say, are in their late 20s or mid 30s.
Okay.
So it's easier to relate and easier to open up to them.
You experienced some good things there. You got a trip to Whistler, and then You got help finding a job you're in today, which is a legal assistant.
Yes.
And you love this kind of work?
I do, to a point where I'm actually considering a career change. I no longer seek interest in, medical lab science.
Okay.
I do, however, still want to be in the medical field, maybe, medical malpractice as a lawyer, personal injury.
Okay.
Definitely want to dive into employment justice and immigration as well.
The scars of your past, how is it today for you?
Well, it comes and goes. I don't think it's ever gonna shrink, but I just have to grow around it, I do get nightmares, a few days a year.
Okay.
But I make sure that the support system I have is way stronger than my past. I no longer allow it to define me. Who I am and who I intend to become is something I look forward to now, almost every day. Yeah.
You represent Covenant House now in a capacity as like an ambassador. How do you define the relationship with Covenant House today?
I'm their poster child. They like to call me their poster child because I've spoken to them. I've spoken for them at their sleepouts, at their International Women's Day last year, and with Dr. Gabor Mate just recently this year. Do you know who he is?
No.
He's a doctor who wrote The Myth of Normal. He worked primarily at the downtown east side in the early 90s, early 2000s, and his work on trauma, addiction, and what we consider normal is something that inspired me. And I was able to meet him a few months ago.
Wow.
So he's kind of a pseudo celebrity. So I'm very proud of that achievement this year. So Covenant House and I's relationship is something I would consider like they're going to be my home forever. Like they've been imprinted a huge part of themselves in my heart that, wherever I go, my intention is to meet people where they're at. I don't want to force anyone to change. I treat everyone with as much compassion, and I want to be their safe space just as Covenant House has been my safe space. I also remind myself, it's not my job to fix people.
Right.
It's their choice if they want to help themselves or not. But my boundaries, my goals, my hopes, my dreams is something I can carry with me, and I can only hope that I can inspire them to do the same.
How are things with your mom, with your siblings today?
Oh, we're great. My mom actually was at the Surrey Festival helping me out with my fundraiser for Covenant House.
Very cool.
I think because my mom saw a tremendous change in me, she decided to, wake up, for a lack of better word, wake up and, seek help as well. Okay. A lot of that comes from, she's only ever spoken to patients for 12 years. Right. And she didn't really have time to have that support system, to immerse herself in community, to find hobbies or interests that intrigued her. Right. And I'm just as compassionate to my mother. I know where she's coming from. She's only a mom once in her lifetime. So everything I'm experiencing, she's experiencing for the first time too. So
you are doing some pageantry, Miss Philippines, BC, Miss Asia, Canada.
Yes.
What's all that about?
So I got into pageantry I was halfway through my Covenant House, adventure. They were very supportive of that. They didn't fund me. They made me save all my money to make sure that I was able to fund myself through. And they're a huge part of why I decided to pursue pageantry. Okay. I did Miss Philippines International of BC. Okay. And I won that title. Okay. And then the prize for that was to compete in Miss Asia Canada.
Okay.
So I won the provincial title for that and eventually placed first runner-up. And this year I'm competing for Miss World Canada. And if I don't make it to Miss World Canada, there's like subgroups.
Okay.
Miss Earth, Miss Supra, Miss Supranational, Miss Intercontinental, and Miss Grand.
Lots of pageants.
Yeah.
And are there prizes that go with this? Is it mainly a notoriety? Is it mainly something you enjoy doing, or?
Well, the prize is to compete internationally, and then it opens a lot of doors for networking, for meeting business opportunities. I do see myself becoming an entrepreneur 10 years from now, but for now I'm just building that network, building experience. And pageantry is also a great platform to raise awareness around youth homelessness, child grooming, domestic abuse.
So this is what I was thinking about, and as we wrap up here, you're now starting to talk about the last question. The big one that I have is your dreams for the future. You've been given this life, and God never promises us smooth going. Heaven is not on earth. Heaven is a place somewhere else. This is earth, and we know in this life we shall have all kinds of good and all kinds of other. Some more, some less. Pain is pain, right? You've experienced your share. Somehow you've come out of that time in your life with a very sweet spirit, and more importantly even, I think, is ready to help others from your story, from your understanding, from hope for them, because you have experienced some freedom, right? So I don't want to put words in your mouth. What's your dream or dreams?
Number one on the list is I want to establish myself as a philanthropist. I want to go back to the Philippines, help kids in public schools reach their potential just by believing in themselves. Stop, child exploitation one day. I do want to become a lawyer, so I'm saving up for school at the moment, and hopefully compete internationally, win a title, Miss Universe Canada. That's the closest.
You can do it.
Yeah, that's my dream. That's my dream. Those are my dreams.
What would you say to people that anything else that comes in your mind we haven't covered, anything that comes from your heart, anything that you want to pass on?
Well, to the people who donate to Covenant House, there's this one part of my speech I gave for International Women's Day last year, is that when you donate money, don't think of it as something you're doing just out of the sheer goodwill of your heart.
Right.
You're saving a life, and in my case, you saved me, a woman who will pass on the experience, the knowledge, the kindness, the sincerity down towards a line of generations that will carry
ripple effect.
Yeah. So you're not just saving my life, you're saving an entire line of generation that will want to make an impact to the community. So just keep giving, just be kind, be more compassionate. Anytime, any day could be someone's last straw, and if you show one simple act of kindness, I believe that you could be saving a life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is a new friend, Reem, and she has been very open to share her story, which many would not do. They're not at that place in their life, but she's taking a risk, and she's allowing us to publish this, and we're going to see what's going to happen in somebody's life because she was willing to take this risk. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Reem.
My seamstress.
Oh,
Yeah.
for?
Oh, I'm getting a few dresses altered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you want to just go against here and you can steady yourself or stand without, then we've got all this in the background here.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So this is Reem.